A warm welcome to my dear children. I am Patel Arpita. Today I am going to discuss Standard 8 History, Chapter number 1, How, When and Where. Here in this unit we have three questions: how, when and where. So first I am going to give you introduction of this unit. First we have question: what is history? So we can say that history is the study of past events, and it is much more than memorizing dates. Now we are going to study in this chapter dates of events, which dates to be considered as important in history, method of periodization and sources of history. Now first we discuss about how important dates are. We can say that there was a time when historians were fascinated with dates. There were heated debates about the dates on which rulers were crowned or battles were fought. You may have heard people say, I find history boring because it is all about memorizing dates. History is certainly about changes that occur over time. It is about finding out how things were in the past and how things have changed. As soon as we compare the past with the present, we refer to time. We talk of before and after. Living in the world, we do not always ask historical questions about what we see around us. We take things for granted, as if what we see has always been in the world we inhabit. But most of us have our moments of wonder when we are curious and we ask questions that actually are historical. All such historical questions refer us back to notions of time. But time does not have to be always precisely dated in terms of a particular year or a month. Sometimes it is actually incorrect to fix precise dates to processes that happen over a period of time. People in India did not begin drinking tea one fine day. They developed a taste for it over a time. Similarly, we cannot fix one single date on which British rule was established or the national movement started or changes took place within the economy and society. All these things happen over a stretch of time. We can only refer to a span time of time and approximate period over which particular changes became visible. Now we have question also. Why then do we continue to associate history with a string of dates? So we can say that this association has a reason. There was a time when history was an account of battles and big events. It was about rulers and their policies. Historians wrote about the year a king was crowned, the year he married, the year he had a child, the year he fought a particular war, the year he died, and the year the next ruler succeeded to the throne. For events such as these, specific dates can be determined, and in histories such as these, debates about dates continue to be important. Now, as you have seen in the history textbooks of the past 2 years, historians now write about a host of other issues and other questions. They look at how people earn their livelihood, what they produce, and at how cities developed and markets came up, how kingdoms were formed and new ideas spread, and how cultures and society changed. Now, our next topic is which dates. So, we can say that by what criteria do we choose a set of dates as important? So, the dates we select, the dates around which we compose our story of the past, are not important on their own. They become vital because we focus on a particular set of events as important. If our focus of study changes, if we begin to look at new issues, a new set of dates will appear significant. For example, in the histories written by British historians in India, the rule of each governor general was important. These histories begin with the rule of the first governor general, Warren Hastings, and ended with the last viceroy, Lord Mountbatten. In separate chapter, we read about the deeds of others: Hastings, Wellesley, Bentinck, Canning, Lawrence, Lytton, Ripon, Harding, Irvine. It was seemingly never ending succession of governor general and viceroy. All the dates in these history books were linked to these personalities, to their activities, policies, achievements. It was as if there was nothing outside their lives that was important for us to know. The chronology of their lives marked the different chapters of the history of British India. When we write story, history, so we divide it into chapters. Why do we do this? So it is to tell a story in a way that makes some sense and can be followed. In the process, we focus only on those events that help us to give shape to the story we are telling. In the histories that revolve around the life of British Governor General, the activities of Indians simply do not fit. They have no space. So, what then do we do? So, we need another format for our history. This would mean that the old dates will no longer have the significance they earlier had. A new set of dates will become more important for us to know. Now, our another point is, how do we periodize? So, in 1817, James Will, a Scottish economist and political philosopher, published a massive 3-volume work, A History of British India. In this, he divided Indian history into 3 periods: Hindu, Muslim, and British. This periodization came to be widely accepted. Can you think of any problem with this way of looking at Indian history? Why do we try and divide history into different periods? So, we do so in an attempt to capture the characteristics of a time, its central features as they appear to use. So, the terms through which we periodize, that is, democratic the difference between periods, become important. They reflect our ideas about the past. They show how we see the significance of the change from one period to the next. Mill thought that all Asian societies were at a lower level of civilization than Europe. According to his telling of history, before the British came to India, Hindu and Muslim despots ruled the country. Religious intolerance, caste, superstitious practices dominated social life. British rule, Mill felt, could civilize India. To do this, it was necessary to introduce European manners, arts, institutions, and laws in India. Mill, in fact, suggested that the British should conquer all the territories in India to ensure the enlightenment and the happiness of the Indian people. For India was not capable of progress without British help. In this idea of history, British rule represented all the forces of progress and civilization. The period before British rule was one of darkness. Can such a conception be accepted today? So, in any case, can we refer to any period of history as Hindu or Muslim? Did not a variety of faiths exciting stimulously in these periods? Why should we characterize an age only through the religions of the rulers of the time? To do so is to suggest that the lives and the practices of the others do not really matter. We should also remember that even rulers in ancient India did not all share the same faith. Moving away from British classification, historians have usually divided Indian history into ancient, medieval, and modern. This division too has its problem. It is a periodization that is borrowed from the West, where the modern period was associated with the growth of all the forces of modernity: science, reason, democracy, liberty, and equality. Medieval was a term used to describe a society where these features of modern society did not exist. As you will see in this book, under British rule, people did not have equality, freedom, or liberty, nor was the period one of economic growth and progress also. Many historians therefore refer to this period as colonial. Now we discuss about what is colonial. In this book, you will read about the way the British came to conquer the country and establish their rule. You will see how they established control over the economy and society, collected revenue to meet all their expenses, bought the goods they wanted at low price, produced crops they needed for export, and you will understand the changes that came about as a consequences. You will also come to know about the changes British rule brought about in values and states, customs, and practices. With subjugation, subjugation of the country by another leads of these kinds of political, economic, social, and cultural changes. We refer to the process and colonization. You will, however, find that all classes and groups did not experience these changes in the same way. That is why the book is called Our Parts in the plural. Now, how do we know administration produces records? So, what sources do historians use in writing about the last 250 years of Indian history? So, the official records of the British administration, the British believed that the act of writing was important. Every instruction, plan, policy, policy, decision, agreement, investigation had to be clearly written up. Once this was done, things could be properly studied and debated. All important documents and letters needed to be carefully preserved. So, they set up record rooms attached to all administrative institutions. Specialized institutions like archives and museums were also established to preserve important records. Letters and memos that moved from one branch of the administration or to another in the early years of the 19th century. You can also study the notes and reports that district official prepared or the instructions and that we sent by officials at the top to provincial administrators. These documents were carefully copied out, the beautifully written by calligraphists, that is, by those who specialized in the art of beautiful writing. Now, we discuss about survey becomes important. By the early 19th century, detailed survey were being carried out to map the entire country. In the villages, revenue surveys were conducted. The effort was to know topography, the soil quality, the flora, the fauna, the local histories, and the cropping pattern, all the facts seen necessary to know about the administer the region. This prepared details record of the numbers of people in all the provinces of India, noting information on castes, religions, occupation. There were many their surveys, botanical surveys, zoological surveys, archaeological surveys, and forest surveys. This practice of surveying also became common under the colonial administration. The British believed that a country had to be properly known before it could be effectively administered. Now, what official records do not tell? So you can say that they tell us what the official thought, what they were interested in, and what they wished to preserve for prosperity. These records do not always help us understand what other people in the country felt and what they lay behind their actions. We have diaries of peoples, accounts of pilgrims and travelers, autobiographies of important personalities, and popular booklets that were sold in the local bazaars. As printing spread, newspapers were published and issues were debated in public. Leaders and reformers wrote to spread their ideas. Poets and novelists wrote to express their feelings. From these, we will not be able to understand how history was experienced and lived by the tribals and the peasants, the workers in the mines, or the poor on the streets. Getting to know their lives is a more difficult task. If we make a little bit of effort when you read this book, you will see how this can be done. Now, I hope so you understand the lesson. Thank you.